IntelliAgent and what is going on in the files there that's different. If you haven't started a transaction in the last week, you're going to notice some changes, and I highly recommend you go in and do a fake transaction so you can test it out. Just see what's going on. Start a seller's transaction, start a buyer transaction. One of the things that I asked compliance to do was to give us a line item for everything that gets signed during agency. So when you have a listing and you have the PRBS, possible representation of more than one buyer or one seller, the consumer privacy, wire fraud advisory, all of those extra things besides the 6-page actual listing contract. So agency, all of that. And with the new car updates where you have the broker compensation acknowledgement or agreement, whatever that is called, that's in there too. So we now have line items for everything that gets signed in the agency phase of a transaction. And then we have a second line item for when those are countersigned during contract phase. So if you have a buyer, you're going to see on the buyer broker agreement all those same kind of things, and the buyer inspection advisory is now called the buyer investigation advisory. All of those things are now required by CAR, and they're prefab, right? They come in that bundle. So everything that's in the original bundle when you establish agency is now under agency and IntelliAgent. Then when you go into contract, you're going to see the fully executed. It will say signed by all parties. So it will either say signed by buyer in agency or signed by seller during agency. And then when it's fully executed, it'll be signed by all parties in the contract section. The idea is the state tells us, and what we're supposed to do is everything that gets signed, we're supposed to upload, right? And before we were trying to kind of circumvent that by just saying only upload things that are countersigned. But it created some confusion, especially on listings where you have a seller's advisory. Well, where does that go? We didn't have a line item. So now we have line items for everything that you have during agency. We also added the escrow holder acknowledgement line item. We added a contingency removal line item. And then we added, my favorite thing, 2 different Avid lines, one for the listing agent, one for the selling agent, so that you know where those are going to go, even if they're signed at the same time, whatever. I know that was an issue as far as uploading those documents and trying to, put them both together on the same PDF and upload it. That's a huge pain. So I tried to make this super easy for you. Everything is kind of, like I said, just right there, bullet pointed. The things that are in there are what is required for almost every transaction. What's not in there is things that are extra, like let's say you have the seller in place addendum, or you have a FHA VA addendum. Those kinds of things don't apply to every transaction, so those are still going to need to be in the custom section. Does that make sense? Okay, so the idea is the things that you probably will do for every transaction were the ones that we require, and the ones that are special for whatever transaction you're doing, like a trust where you have a representative capacity agreement or trust advisory, those are still going to be custom documents that are uploaded. Has anybody gone in and looked at IntelliAgent in the last week, noticed anything as far as new transactions?
I've went in and looked at them, but I didn't notice the differences you're talking about.
Yeah, so I would say get in there and do a fake test transaction on the listing side and do one on the buy side, and then just go ahead and terminate those. But I at least want you to get in there and see what the requirements are going to be. As far as a list of required documents, I can get that out to you. What I have is a Google Drive document right now, and it's what I'm working on with compliance. So I don't want to send that out to you because there's notes on there that you don't need, but I will create one for you with just a list of what's now required. And again, everything that gets signed by the clients, your side or the other side, if it gets sent to you and it's signed, it needs to go in the transaction. So all reports, remember to put the signature on the first page of the property inspection, pest inspection, title report, anything that is given out as a disclosure. Yeah. Can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. All right. Does that make sense to everyone? There we go. Groovy. Thank you. Okay. I don't know if you need me to open IntelliAgent. I feel like that's not necessary, but I do want you to be able to know what's coming down the pipeline, right? So, like I said, we added a lot of documents now under the agency phase because that's when they're signed. And we wanted to make sure that you had a place to put them as you're supposed to, right? I know TCs have kind of had a difficult time with that because they didn't know what to do with the documents that weren't listed. So if you could please let your TCs know that they should also go in and have a look around. And it's not retroactive. So anything that you have that you started 2 weeks ago, a month ago, is not going to show those new line items. It's anything that is going forward. So that's why I say maybe a test transaction would be helpful. Any questions on that? No? Groovy. Okay. While we're all on the line here, does anyone have a win they want to share? New listings coming up, buyers that are going into contract. I'm sorry, Cheryl, give me a second. I'll look at that. Chat. Ah, yes. Thank you guys for putting that contact information in the chat. I hope you're all looking at that. I want you to put in where you're selling, and if you have a specialization. I know Sarah Lynn does a lot of estates and large properties. Laura does some commercial. So we have a lot of resources here as well. So very helpful. Anybody have questions on IntelliAgent going forward? No, simple. Okay, Brad, do you have anything on the lending side? Anything new coming up?
No, nothing new on the home front. It's just business as usual.
Okay. As far as Hometown Heroes goes, there was a training last Thursday.
Yep.
Did anyone attend that?
I didn't.
No, it was lightly attended, and we had to postpone it. So we got to figure out another date and get some better attendance on it.
Okay.
I didn't get a notification that it was going to happen because that's definitely on my list of things I want to do.
Okay. How many of you got an email from me this morning around 10:30? You should be getting those distribution emails. Good. If you're not, I need you to email agent services, and I also need you to whitelist Fathom Realty so that you do see these emails. What happens when you onboard is they take your email that you use to onboard and they make that your default for the Team Sacramento distribution list that I have. I don't see your emails. All I know is this is the address that I send it out on. So if you're not seeing it, I want to make sure that you do get that data. And the SMS feature right now is not available to me, so I can't send you a text message. Okay. You can also email Brad, and Brad can hook you up too. But I do want to get another Hometown Heroes training going in the next week or two. Brad,
Yeah, I'll check with Mark and see what dates he's got available as a follow-up.
Okay.
I touched base with him on Friday, but we were playing telephone tag.
Okay, that sounds good. I just want to make sure that we get as many of you certified as possible. There's also some marketing assets
especially coming into 4th of July. You know, it's a great time to be able to use that as a marketing tool and get that going.
Yeah. So we'll try again on that. I know we had some people sign up. I don't know where the disconnect was as far as the link that they were supposed to use. I'm not sure what happened there. So we'll work on it. That's really all I had. I wanted to make sure that you are aware of the, I would call it improvements in IntelliAgent, because I think this will make your paperwork side of transactions a lot smoother, because now you have a place for every document that's required. Custom documents are still custom. Not much I can do about that. I tried.
Krista, I have
Laura.
a quick question.
Yeah.
Come July 1st, or is there going to be a new buyer's agent form that we are going to be required to complete now as of the NAR lawsuit and all that?
Yeah, as far as I know, there is not. And
Okay.
they've kicked that can down to middle of August.
Okay.
So I don't know when we're actually going to see that as a requirement, but going forward, I would say, again, on the buyer agency and the listing agreement, there is that broker compensation advisory that's in there. So you should plan to use that.
Okay.
NAR has some trainings. They've put together the buyer agency training for you. It's part of the ABR designation, but the buyer training webinar is free. You just need to go on to CAR or NAR and sign up for it. There was, when they first launched this, there was a on-demand version, but what I found is now that's not applicable. And Brad was telling us last time that it's a little bit outdated. So you're better off doing the live training. I think they're scheduling out into fall right now. I think it's like September.
Okay.
They're
And I
scheduling.
know it was going to be free for us.
It is.
And then there's an annual membership after that if you want to keep that certification.
Well, here's the deal. The ABR certification actually has other courses that are required, not just this one for the buyer representation. This is just a piece of it. So you're not going to be certifying as a buyer representative once you finish this course. It's just more of risk
Okay.
management, right? For
Okay.
NAR.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
I am getting ready to close on a listing that has a septic system,
Okay.
and it's asking for a copy of the septic permit. The house has been there since like 1980.
Mhm.
So I've got to get a copy of the permit.
If you can, the seller is really the one that's required to do that. If you have a septic inspection, I would upload that for sure. If you can't get the permit, then I would put in a comment saying seller has no, like seller couldn't obtain it.
Okay.
But you as
Okay,
the
yeah, we
agent-
have the inspection report.
Great. Okay, so you as the agent should not be going to the county and pulling anything. That is
Okay,
not-
yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah, don't do that.
so
What-
is
Yeah,
is
what area?
IntelliAgent
Oop,
is IntelliAgent asking for
Yes,
Yeah, it
permit?
does. If there's a septic, it'll ask for the permit.
yeah. And then we've already done all the disclosures, and I discovered Saturday that the neighbors are raising parrots and they can be quite noisy. And I've never had to make further disclosures after we've done like the SPQ and TDS. Do I just make an addendum for that, or is there, okay, just an addendum?
You
Okay.
can.
And just
Yeah.
make it to the SPQ then, like an
Yeah,
addendum to
if
the
it's,
SPQ.
yeah, because I think there's a line item in there about noise. So
There
that-
is, and she didn't even think of it because
she's
they
used to
don't
it.
let the birds out that often.
Okay.
But when I was there, I felt like I was in Jurassic Park. It was
Whoa.
pretty wild.
Have the buyers been through when the birds are out?
No.
Okay. I would definitely let the buyer agent know,
Oh,
hey,
she knows, she was
Oh,
there
okay.
with me. So
okay,
yeah, it was pretty
yeah.
interesting.
Definitely get a disclosure on that. And the buyer agent knows. The buyer agent should also tell her client.
Yeah.
He, she,
Yeah.
whoever.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we were covered on that because that could be something that they don't like.
I agree.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. You get barking dogs as a nuisance all the time. I have a neighbor who had a son that had a drum set. That was awesome.
How to
And
what?
They had a drum set. And he would leave the
Oh,
windows open and he would go to town on his drum set up until early evening, right?
oh boy.
He didn't make a big deal out of it because I had 3 boys and I was like, well, it'll be coming back at you. I got 3 boys I'm raising, so
Yeah.
huge deal, but it could have been for someone who has, a light sleeper or little kids or whatever,
Yeah.
But if it's a noise that you hear from the street, I would disclose it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Hmm.
So Krista, regarding that, the listing I'm working on, I'm up in the rural area. And so I know there's mountain cats and bear, and so does the owner, but she didn't specifically list that anywhere or disclose it. I did have her sign a statewide California buyer and seller advisory that mentions wild animals in there. Should I go any farther?
I don't know that I would because that's the nature of the area. There's
Right.
wildlife up there.
That's what I,
Anybody else want to tackle that? Would you disclose that? We're all like,
Oh,
no,
yeah, forget about it. Okay.
no, no. Um, yeah, I think, active infestation should be disclosed, but I mean, if you got wildlife, like I live on a greenbelt area, there's deer that go by, there's foxes back
Yeah.
there, snakes sometimes. It just is what it is, and we expect to see that.
Okie doke.
Okay, any other questions? That was a good one.
Oh, regarding not going to the county for anything specific, can we guide them? Can we meet them there? Can we help set up the appointment, like on the phone call?
You might want to connect them, but I would not do any of the
Set up?
acquisition, because that's
Okay.
not your thing. I know you're dealing with an elderly person, but there should be someone helping the seller with those kinds of things. It's not, I wouldn't do it because it's not part of our scope of duty. We're not the ones that are supposed to go pull documents or anything. That's discovery for the buyer side and the listing, the seller to disclose.
Can I meet her there?
Sure, you can meet her there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Hot
I had
seat.
a question.
Yes. Jeff, where are you? Oh, there you are. Hi, Jeff.
Just since I don't get this often, if I have a listing and then someone wants to put an offer who's not represented, so we're not under any representation agreement, and let's say it doesn't even get accepted because my client wasn't interested, I obviously upload it as an unaccepted offer or rejected offer in my listing transaction. Do I still need to create a purchase transaction even though there's no more contact with this person other than this offer?
No, you didn't have a contract
No
because
contract, nothing,
yeah,
just a dual agency. Okay, just making sure.
yeah, you don't need to do anything. They can write an offer. If it's not accepted, just put it in under unaccepted offers. I've seen you do that, which is great.
Thank you. It's in there for you later.
Yeah, and that is another good point. Jeff brings up I know he's had a few like this where I don't know if it's the same property, Jeff, but that's you've had some
This is the
unaccepted
same
offers.
property right now.
Picky seller. But if you do get an offer, you still should put it in the file if it's been rejected. Just as long as the seller signs that it's rejected, then you've done your duty.
And I'd say this is going to change come the new NAR regulations because you won't be able to show a property unless you get a representation agreement in place. And right now it's prior. So once come later on, then yeah, most likely we'll have more transactions in IntelliAgent just on the mere fact that if you want to show a property to someone who's not represented, then you're going to have to create an agreement at that point. But not right now though.
I expect to see at least one more form out of CAR. The one that they did right now was just addressing the broker compensation rules, if you want to call it that, just disclosing how brokerage compensation works, but it didn't address the agency issue. So I'm sure we're going to see something more. I don't think it's going to happen middle of August. I think it'll happen late in the year, but that's just
They
me.
still have 2 months, and it'll change probably 10 more times before they figure it out. You can watch all the videos you want, but by the end, it won't even match.
I think you're right, Sarah Lynn. I think that it's going to take a little bit of time for the CAR board or whoever's doing these forms to kind of massage it to where they feel it will catch most transactions. There's probably going to be 3 or 4 different agency boxes to check on one form, would be my guess. I've seen people putting together like single property agency so they can show a property after an open house. I've seen people do limited showings, like these 3 properties I'm going to show you. After that, we will need to have agency, like expanded agency. But that's kind of what I've seen right now is, onesie twosie. I'm going to show you these specific properties, and I know we already have a form for that. So that's what I'm seeing. Anybody else? Any other issues we can help solve for you? All right, cool. I appreciate you guys all coming on. Let's do this. I think we've got a few more minutes. Brad, is there any changes in lending that we should know about? I heard I heard that the no is coming back on the lending side. Have you heard anything about that? Where 0 down type loans that are coming back around?
Not zero down, but yeah, there have been a couple investors on the non-QM side, starting to kind of play with it a little bit, but they are larger down payment. I doubt that we'll see any of those come with, lower minimum down payment just because of the layers of risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's also going to be some more documentation on VA loans and how to work with that, since it's a no down situation.
The irony on that one is that, when you look at loans and statistics and, their, failure rates and foreclosures and defaults and VA loans, even though they're zero down and in some cases are over, because sellers contribute everything. And I've done deals, where $1 million home and the vet comes in with, less than $1,000 out of pocket. But statistically, with the foreclosures and the defaults, they are still one of the, best performers when it comes to that. So, they definitely proved the fact that, having no down payment or low down payment isn't the cause for the defaults. It is definitely a training and an upbringing, because most of our vets are, trained as such to handle their budgets, their financials, pay their bills, and they do it at all costs. And so it is definitely, an educating perspective.
Yeah. Rita had a question in the chat. She wanted to know what the current rate is for a 30-year mortgage. And my answer to that would be, depends on so many different factors, right?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, but ranging right now, they're ranging anywhere from 6.8 to 7.2, 7.3. But then you can take somebody with a really low FICO score that's looking to get in, and they'll be over 8%. So it's all relative to the risk assessment that's associated with that profile.
Cool. Sarah Lynn has a question about assuming a loan. FHA, you can assume. VA, can you assume?
FHA, VA, both can be assumed. Typically, they'll charge 1 point to the parties on both sides, both the seller and the buyer. Conventionals, unless it's a really old conventional that never got refinanced, which does happen. I just came across one that has its last 9 years and it was not refinanced through any of the markets, which is crazy to me. So they were sitting at 6.25. But unless you find an old conventional, it's not going to be assumable.
Yeah. Did that answer your question, Sarah Lynn?
And the tricky part on VAs for assumptions is that the vet is still on the hook on their entitlement. So that makes it really dicey. So unless it's a family member or somebody they know that they trust with their entitlement, most cases, VA do not assume.
Yeah.
Are you
Not because they don't allow it, just because it's just too much.
I guess my question is, are you seeing more assumption of loans now, because it would be within the last 7 years and those would be 2% and 3% loans?
It's a huge market for it, especially if you have anybody that understands AITDs, all-inclusive trust deeds. It's a great way to do those assumptions and transfer ownership accordingly while that loan is still being serviced. So
they couldn't have paid down any. At 2% and 3%, they couldn't have paid down a whole lot on the loan.
No, they didn't. But the tricky part is bringing in the capital to do so, because if somebody's sitting, say, at 60% loan to value, that typically that buyer or the seller wants to get that other 40% in equity paid, and so a lot of the buyers don't have that equity share to be able to pay them, cash them out, and assume the loan.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a great topic, and it's it's like I said, using the AITDs are a great way to protect both sides and put a deal together that normally wouldn't happen.
Cool. Sarah Lynn, I remember maybe it was a week ago or so, you were putting together some Fathom marketing stuff to do an event. Can you share where you're at with that and what you're doing?
Yes, Mr. Brad.
Hey, turn on your volume.
Yes.
A little bit.
Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
believe me, work with Brad. He's, he's right there for you. We've got, Rosie and I are working with a contractor, and plus this last weekend was a town open house that they had 80 houses on tour. Besides, we have a lot of lots for sale, and Brad put together programs for purchasing and buy downs, and he is now working with the contractor that we're working with. The gentleman is trying to build 100 homes here on Paradise to bring people back to the hill. And they put out advertising in San Francisco, Sacramento, everywhere. And it was a really nice event. And then they had music at night. We had a great turnout for the open house. Brad has done riders that you can get his QR code and everything. So he's a great person to work with. If you haven't worked with him, you should. It's now a team effort here. We have contractors, and the gentleman that we're working with also, he is giving up to 3 years of homeowners insurance, and he is approximately $100 less a square foot building. So he's really trying to help the families to get back up on this hill. And it is a beautiful town. I mean, they're really working on it. And hopefully Brad comes up soon. But yeah, but if you haven't worked with Brad, you really should, because he knows his shit. He knows his stuff for sure.
Well, thank you. Yeah, actually, you give me chills just talking about it, because it is about putting a community back on the map that was completely decimated, and that's what it's about. So, and
Rosie
yes,
and I are working
actually, I'll
really
get with you
close.
guys for later
Yeah.
this month.
Yeah. So that brings us to the last topic, which is putting together a meetup for y'all. I'm looking at the last week of June, and a weekday. I don't want it to be a Friday, because generally that cuts into everyone else's plans for the summer. So I'm looking at either a Tuesday or Wednesday, last part of June.
Wednesday.
Sarah says Wednesday. Y'all in favor?
26th.
I'm down. I'll just make one big loop.
Hey.
To all you guys.
Do all the things. All right, so I will take a look at that, see if we can get a venue for that. I'd love to do an agent meetup. We have some Fathom awards to give out as well. And if we could maybe look at Hometown Heroes either the morning of, Brad, and then a mixer after, that would be groovy. I don't know if we could make that happen, but that would be my preferred. Last time we met up, we were at Top Golf. Does anybody not love Top Golf?
Is it?
Always a good time.
Love Top
I'll
Golf.
take a look at that.
Oh.
Okay. So I'll work on that with Brad. And 26th, if we can't, then we'll do it Tuesday the 25th.
Yep.
Okay. So earlier in the week would be ideal. I don't want to get near the 4th of July. Lots of people traveling, and I don't want to get in the middle of that. But I would like to meet up with y'all and meet face to face with Brad. Like I said, Brad is a really, really good resource. There's a lot of good reasons to use Encompass, and especially to use Brad, because he does know his stuff. So if you haven't reached out, please do, and let Brad kind of show you what can happen when you guys partner up. He's great. Melissa, did you want to say something? No? Okay. Okay, we are at the half hour. I appreciate you all taking the time. Some really good data and information here. Please go into IntelliAgent, open it up, do a fake transaction on the listing and buy side, kind of get familiar with what's required. Like I said, I tried to make it easier by giving you a line item for everything that your clients are signing. All right. What else? Dagley Insurance was sold about a week ago, 2 weeks ago now. I do want to let you know that they still do offer discounts for Fathom agents and their families, but you can opt out of them calling your clients when you have a buy side. They have been calling on their ISAs to offer a free insurance quote, and it catches some people off guard. We'll be updating the affiliated business disclosure because of that, but for now, keep using the regular affiliated business disclosure that you find in IntelliAgent until that gets updated. but just beware that Dagley will still honor Fathom agent discounts. Okay. So good with that. All right, you guys have a super good week. I really appreciate you coming in and contributing. That it's really helpful when you have questions, because other people probably have questions, and it helps everyone when you all bring those up as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Have a good week. And if you need me, please shoot me a text and we can get on a call. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.